Fantasy Football Sleeper Report Week 5. We got daily fantasy sleepers, and we have waiver wire gems. If you're facing injury, you need to stream a player this week. We got you covered. I'm going to give you 3 from every single position. Let's get rolling. The first one on the list for quarterbacks, Daniel Jones. And remember, these are fantasy football sleepers. These are guys that should be on your waiver wire. Daniel Jones this week projects at a 27.24, the number 3 quarterback that came back in my computer projections, owned in 39.2% of leagues. He's actually scoring quite well. He's better with his legs than you think he is. I don't know. You look at him, you have a little bias. It's Daniel Jones bias. If you're not a Giants fan, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to play him. Not that I would endorse playing him over some of the other guys that you have available. It's not like I would play him over Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson or any of these guys, regardless of matchup. But Daniel Jones, if you're looking for that gem, if you're in a super flex league to plug in, Daniel Jones could get it done for you this week. Next quarterback on my list, Sam Darnold. He's been consistent all year, and he's getting you touchdowns with his legs. I think he's got 5 on the season. 5 on the season after 4 weeks of football. Sam Darnold, he's not the New York Jets Sam Darnold. He's a Carolina Panthers Sam Darnold, and there is a difference. Projected to be the number 6 quarterback in my computer projections this week at 25.22 points, 37.4% owned. And by the way, not only do I like him for week 5, I like him season long. If you need a backup quarterback, if you're in Superflex, you can try to trade for him because, he doesn't have a lot of name cachet, so you might be able to get him on a budget. Third quarterback on my list, Zach Wilson. I laugh a little bit because, I don't know, I've been saying that the Jets' offense is better than you think it is for a while, and I do. And I think the Jets had a really tough, opening part of the season. I really still believe that. Number 7 quarterback this week, though, that's a high projection for Zach Wilson. That's a bold computer projection, 25.11 on the week. 7.1% owned in fantasy leagues. Let's move it to running back for you now. Number 1 on my list is actually Michael Carter, another New York Jet. Can you believe it? Look, Zach Wilson's got to throw the ball to somebody. Michael Carter gets about half the carries, maybe even a little bit more. He might be getting about 60% of the carries now, and he gets basically all the receiving targets. Tevin Coleman is not a threat. Ty Johnson is not a threat. He is still available in 63.3% of leagues, which I think is ridiculous. 17.26 points, his best output of the season, and his best, by the way, computer projection of the season. If he's available in your league, pick him up and stash him, everybody. Seriously, I mean, at 63.3%, that is too low for Michael Carter. Damien Williams, now obviously earlier in the week I had him listed here. He's up to 73.2% owned in leagues, but an 18.23 point projection. Let me say this about Damien Williams. The computer projection is good, but the computers are still liking and thinking that Montgomery still exists. Damien Williams, I hesitate because of Nagy as a play caller. I think that he's going to move away from the run early in this game. So I have more trepidation with this, but I'm putting the computer projections out there. They think the matchup for the Chicago Bears this week is good, so I'm going to go ahead and say that. Now, another running back you're probably not going to get, only 10% of you out there can get him because he's owned in 90.4% of leagues, but I wanted to mention him specifically because he has not hit expectations. Mike Davis of the Atlanta Falcons projected to be the number 4 running back this week at a 24.62. He is going to have his best game of the season. I know what Patterson did last week. Believe me, I know it. And I've been talking Patterson up like crazy for the Falcons. But this is the week I think Atlanta can assert a power run game. And we'll see if they do it. To me, this is the week that if Mike Davis doesn't get it done, he's not going to get it done for you this season. And you start to look to drop him. And you'll start to see that 90.4% owned in leagues drop to like 76%, after this week and all that stuff if he lays another egg this week. Let's move it to wide receiver. Number 1 on my list here, Marquez Callaway. Now listen, I did not buy into the hype, and I got some flack for this. I did not buy into the hype about Marquez Callaway in the offseason after, the 2-touchdown game or whatever it was in the preseason. I just didn't buy it. But I'm buying him this week based on matchup. Number 8 projected wide receiver on my list this week at a 20.03, gets into the end zone, 41.6% of the leagues owned. You have basically, a 60% chance, close to a 60% chance of being able to get him and plug him in if you need help at wide receiver. Daily fantasy-wise, might be a good budget play for you. Hunter Renfrow, a guy I've liked for a while. He's kind of fallen under the radar the last couple of years. This year, I'm hearing more about him. A lot of my readers from my Fantasy Football Almanac ask me about him. I've liked him the whole way. He's consistent, and I think this is a weekend that he gets into the end zone. By the way, By the way, I have to give a shout out to that well, I don't know, amazing might be a little strong, but it was a great football play on a punt return. Comes down, puts a hit on the guy. I can't even remember the receiver. It looked like it was going to be a first down on a fake punt. Hunter Renfrow comes in, blows that play up. That's a football. He's just a football player. What can you say about the guy? I like him. I like watching him play. But this week, I think it's a nice matchup for him. Computer projections have him as the number 9 wide receiver this week, 19.83 points and 51.1% owned. And then I'm also, okay, everybody, seriously, this is the last jet I'm going to throw up here this week. But Jamison Crowder, remember, Zach Wilson has a good projection, right? Those targets have to go somewhere. And normally I like Corey Davis, but this week I like Jamison Crowder. People have slept on him. He's only owned in 29% of the leagues. I think last week it was like 7%, so people are starting to wake up on him. 17.23 points projected this week, and number 16 wide receiver. He should be on your bench. If you need a wide receiver, if you're thin there, pick him up and stash him, everybody. Come on. At tight end this week, Jonnu Smith, only owned in 61.9% of the leagues. He's my number 2 projected tight end this week at an 18.61 production. By the way, Hunter Henry actually projects pretty well this week as well. I think New England's going to go heavy tight end this week, work the middle of that field. I usually like Jacoby Myers. Nelson Aguilar, I'm hot and cold on. This week, I'm shifting it. I think they're going to work the middle of the field. Mac Jones played very well against Tampa Bay last week. Let's see if he can keep that going. The second tight end I have on my list, the number 5 projected tight end, computer projections this week, 15.27 points from Mike Gesicki. Now, he's probably not going to be available for you. Only in a little less than a quarter of the leagues, 76.5% owned, so you're probably not going to be able to grab him. But again, if you're looking for a daily fantasy sleeper, there you go. Now, a guy that should be owned in a lot more leagues, Dawson Knox, 58.5% owned out there. Go snap him up, for crying out loud. He's getting so many touchdowns because the Bills have so many weapons, right? A lot of people are picking up Max Williams in Arizona for the same reason. Dawson Knox, I think, is going to get more touchdowns, everybody. I mean, he's just a scoring machine at this point. He's not going to get you a lot of catches and yards. You're in a standard league where points perception does not matter. Dawson Knox needs to be rostered. Absolutely needs to be rostered. Number 6 tight end this week. Nice play for you. Now, defense and special teams, I'm going to lead in with the Indianapolis Colts. I believe they play the Baltimore Ravens this week. Projected at the number 5 defense this week, owned in 46.5% of the leagues. Next one on my list, and actually this is my favorite one to pick up for the week in general. They're in the number 6 projected tight end. So if you're playing daily fantasy, I would prefer Indianapolis. But in the Arizona Cardinals this week, pick them up. In league formats, they're definitely a top 5 defense. Remember, in defense, it's not about how many points you give up necessarily. And of course, the scoring formats will change. But it's more about how often you get to the quarterback, how often you get sacks, how often you generate turnovers, and can you score off those turnovers. The Arizona Cardinals can do all of those things. They're very aggressive. They need to be rostered in every league. And also, the Dallas Cowboys. Number 4 projected defense and special teams this week, 33.8% owned. I'm not saying pick them up and stash them, year round. That's why I don't have them higher on my list for you in terms of waiver wires and people to pick up. But this week, I like the matchup. Again, we're talking turnovers and we're talking sacks, and Dallas can do that this week in their matchup. So there you go. There's my list of the waiver wire gems, your daily fantasy sleepers, your late week additions. If you missed the waiver cycle, I got you covered. Please like, comment, subscribe. Do you think I missed anybody? Comment below, and we'll get back to you soon.